So now press the MIDI button again, and this is probably your most advanced page. This is where you can actually reassign the controllers per patch that you save. So for instance, right now I'm looking at the pitch bend, and you can see A, B, and C. Now so far, in this patch, the way I have it set up is that zone 3, C, has pitch bend assigned. So when I move the pitch bend wheel, and I go, you hear it. Now, zone 1, when I move the pitch wheel, nothing is happening. And that's because it's off. And zone 2, which is piano, is also off. So if I want to now, I can say that I want the trumpet, for instance, to pan when I move my pitch wheel. So to do that, all I would have to do is cursor over to zone 3. And instead of PB, which is pitch bend, I would move it up to number 10. 10, for those of you in the know, is MIDI panning information. So as I play the trumpet, you'll hear it moving from side to side. You can also do something like reassign the foot pedal. By cursor back over to the foot pedal, I just scroll up to where it says foot 1. Okay. Now, the default is 4. That's always the MIDI default for a continuous foot pedal. But if I cursor over to zone 3 and I change 4 to 1, continuous controller 1 is usually what the mod wheel is set for. So most synthesizers will do like vibrato on the mod wheel. So now in the reassignment page of the controllers, I'm on the foot page and I set zone 3 to continuous controller 1. So if I play the trumpet and I move my pedal, you can get a nice mod wheel. So if your left hand is busy, the next page we get to is your velocity table. And the instrument has different velocity tables, different ways that it will respond to the velocity that you're actually inputting to the keyboard. And this is the page that you can have some fun with that and preset it to be exactly what you want it to be. If I go one more page, there's something called active sensing. Active sensing is something that the older synthesizers would respond to. And if you're working with the AXiS and an older synthesizer, it's possible you'll need to turn that on to get them to behave properly together. Let's take a look at the utility page. The first page you come to is Save Setup. So if you've done a lot of work with your MIDI programming and have all your zones assigned and all your controllers assigned the way you want them, here's where it's very easy to save your whole setup. All you would do is press one of the numbers 1 through 8 and then confirm with the plus button. And then you have your settings saved to a patch. If you hit utility again, you get to your next page, which is the backlight page. Usually I would leave my backlight on, but sometimes, you know, in a room where you don't want to be disturbed by the light, you would just turn it off. Or you can have it turned off after a certain number of seconds. Here's the panic page. All musicians panic at some point in their musical lives. Actually, this page is if you have like a stuck note, which happens in MIDI, so it's very convenient to be able to turn all notes off. And remember, there's a nice little dedicated button right up top to do that. You can also have it set to other things, so you could have the panic button set to reset all controls. You can have it set to clear, and also just to panic. So depending on what kind of MIDI gear you're using and what the problem is, you can experiment with that. But basically, all notes off should pretty much do what you need it to do. If you hit utility again, this is your calibration page where you can calibrate all the different controllers. And normally you wouldn't need to touch this at all. An unusual circumstance could come up and you might need to calibrate a controller, and then you'd have to reference your manual to do that. The next page, your control resolution. Again, this is not something that you really want to touch. Sometimes if you're on a stage with a lot of equipment, lights or something like that could interfere a little bit with the way a digital controller works. and you could adjust any problem by going to this control resolution page. If you hit utility again, then you're able to see the serial number, the firmware version of the AXiS. So if you updated your firmware, it would reflect a different number. If you hit utility one more time, this is the default all settings. You want to be careful about defaulting to all settings because you could lose everything that you have worked very long and hard on, and everything could go to data heaven, which would be very unpleasant. But sometimes you want to get to the basic starting point again. You've done things on it, it's totally messed up. You want to go back to when you got it. You could use this page and just say default to all settings, yes.